Welcome to GameRomp, a chill podcast about random video game news and what we've probably been playing in the last week or so. I'm your host, Deanna, and I'm here with...
me, David.
If you've been enjoying this podcast at all and our silly just rambles, do us a help and go leave comments on whatever podcast catcher you use and, I don't know, spread the word on like Twitter, shitter, whatever you want to call it, Blue Sky, things like that. Thanks. So this week, what do you want to talk about?
I'm glad that all the game shows are over, so we don't have to pretend to be a news site. But there are still a couple of demos I want to get through. There's two in mind. One that we both played and one that I've downloaded and haven't played.
Okay, I'm curious about the one that you've downloaded and haven't played.
I don't remember the name. Something about like Hinterlands. It was that game with the girl and they're like, oh, it's a visit this like, was it Swedish town or some European town? And it's like, people come here to vacation, but also there's monsters to fight. Do you remember that trailer?
Was that I remember it being very dark, or maybe I'm thinking of a different game, but I do remember something about Swedish monsters. Maybe like a straw monster?
I don't remember.
See, now I don't know if it's going to be like the same game I was thinking, or if that was years ago and this is like another recreation.
Yeah, it's a new indie game that their demo was out on the Steam Fest, but I haven't played it yet because I've been playing other stuff. But we both played Metal Slug.
Yes, that was interesting. I actually managed to end up playing it before you. So
yeah.
That was a thing.
Did you finish it?
I got to the boss and then I goofed it up, and I think I know exactly how I goofed it up, so maybe for shits and giggles, I should go back and actually attempt the boss again. How far did you get? Because
I finished it.
More frustrated than me.
Really? Why did you think I looked?
Or at least in the beginning, because like you were going through the tutorial, and I kind of had the same problem where like I was reading it, but then it was like, oh, click this, but because it's isometric, it didn't feel like it. I was clicking on the wrong square, and I think you were, if I'm not remembering incorrectly, I think you were. There was something you had to use in the beginning, and you were clicking it, and you're like, why isn't this fucking working? But you had to click something else and then use it.
Oh, I think there was a... I don't remember if this is specifically what we were talking about, but I guess the controls are it takes a bit to get used to, but there was one skill at some point that I used where it's like, I think Airy throws like a grenade and like it bounces and then it selects another target. And I was having trouble like getting that to work. But I guess it's because I was trying to target the same thing, and you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah. I did feel in the beginning that maybe this is just my ADHD, but I felt like I was reading the instructions, but then when I went to go do whatever they were telling me to do, it felt like it worked a little bit different. I don't know. I might have just been misinterpreting something or something. But there was the part in the beginning, and there's like these two guys, and you have to use something so that a box drops down and explodes them both.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I had the same issue you did.
Now that you mention it, that was a frustrating part because he's like, oh, stand next to this switch and then click on the switch to use it. But you weren't supposed to click on the switch that you were standing next to. You were supposed to click on the crane that the switch activated.
Yeah, so I don't know if we were reading it wrong or if...
No, I don't think so. I think they goofed that up.
Okay.
But...
well, that makes me feel better about that then.
I mean, if we both messed up on it, and I remember reading it, like, this does not make sense. Like, it literally says, click on the thing, the switch to, trigger the crane. I think that was like the one time that came up in the game too. I don't know if there was any other switches. At least I didn't run into any.
The other thing I noticed, and I had this problem too, and this is exactly why I fucked up at the boss, but they want you to build up like the heart meter, I guess, whatever that
adrenaline, yeah.
Yeah, adrenaline by moving more. And I have that issue where I just want to move a little bit. So I had to get used to like spreading my people out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think did you make it to the boss?
Yeah, I finished it.
Oh, okay. So you did beat the boss. Because, yeah, there's that thing where the boss is like, it's constantly trying to kill the spaces you're on. So you have to move further.
Yeah.
And it was just like...
It had, I think, 3 modes. One where it would like just target random spaces. One where it would target you and you it doesn't matter where you move, it would hit you. So you would use those opportunities to run up to enemies to try to at least, hit other guys. And that was pretty neat because like, this one guy, this is targeting me, but if I run this far, I can get into cover and then have the adrenaline, the dodge also activates. So it's like the boat would shoot at the character, like basically not do anything to my character and still like kill 2 enemies.
Oh, so that was the trick. Okay.
And then, and then the final thing was like, the other one was it would just sink platforms.
Yeah, that's what I fucked up on.
But yeah, I don't know. I didn't find it too hard. I guess it's more like it was like a stressful in a way where it's like, oh no, there's a lot going on. There's so many guys coming, the boat's shooting, but like I ended up destroying the boat before even getting to like, you start kind of like at, let's say 6 o'clock, and then it moves up to like 3 o'clock, and then it goes up to like 12 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
But like the 12 o'clock platforms popped up and there was a bunch of guys, and I ended up finishing it with my dudes right around like the 3 o'clock part. So it wasn't too bad.
Mm.
But if I would have had to keep running, I probably would have run out of movement.
Yeah, I think there's also probably the thing that I was focusing too much on the little guys and not the boat. I don't even know if I ended up targeting the boat at any point.
Oh, really? That's definitely a mistake.
Yeah, like I said, but the rest of the game, other than the boss, it seemed average. Like I'm not exactly a tactician. These are not games I play, so I'm gonna like be not good at them from the get-go, and I get that. I did notice though, in one of your missions, you did actually lose one of the ladies, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
I came close. I got down to 1 HP, but somehow I managed to get through all of those other than the boss without losing anyone.
I was frustrated at that a lot, actually, because like...
there's no healing.
There is later, but one of the characters, Fio, I think, can learn some healing moves, but because she's more support-oriented and Eri was more like explosives.
Mm.
But the thing that frustrated that about me, because that was, I think, my second mission, and it was the first mission I had where it wasn't just kill everybody, it was escape.
Mm.
And I was still playing cautiously, and that's the mission that taught me you
don't play cautiously.
Yeah,
or
you
not
don't
as much.
You don't have to kill everybody because there's just too many dudes. So the main thing is just you got to run, build up the dodge, use your skills to protect yourself, use the different elevation. The elevation system in the game is weird.
Yeah, I don't like it.
But yeah, I accidentally got Eri killed, and I was frustrated because there is no retry. You can't just like open up the menu and be like retry stage, which to me,
restart at least.
Yeah, restart stage. To me, I find that to be really weird and honestly pretty annoying because like all tactics games have that. Or at least reload, like Final Fantasy Tactics, Fire Emblem, Front Mission, any of those games, Unicorn Overlord. Like, if you get so far into a stage and you're like, this is unwinnable, you could just restart from the start, a blank slate. But this one doesn't let you do that. I don't know if it's because it's trying to be like a roguelike. Like the stage setup almost feels like it's trying to be a roguelike, but if it is... Yeah,
because it seems like maybe beyond the demo, you'll have more characters.
Yeah, actually, after you finish the demo, after you beat the ship, you unlock. What's his name? Marco's the blonde guy, and the other guy is.
I only know of 3 characters, and I barely even remember their names.
I don't remember his name, but the guy with the glasses.
Yeah, like I said, I'm lucky if I remember the 3 main people.
Well, he's a main character too, but yeah, I wish I could remember his name. Anyway, you unlock him, and he specializes in like shotguns and knives.
Mm.
So for like you can play again, and I did start a second playthrough, but I didn't go that far. And
sorry, did you? Maybe you literally just said this. Did you use him?
Yeah, I did.
How do the knives work?
It's melee only. It does more damage, but it's melee only.
So you have to be next to everyone?
Yeah, with the knife, yeah.
Because, like, okay, this sounds like, well, of course it's fucking melee, it's a knife. But, like...
The sword guys.
The sword guys, yeah. They all have swords, or the sword guys that have swords. And you'd think that would be melee, but they can fucking huck those things like...
Yeah.
Like boomerangs. So.
That caught me by surprise, too. But then when I think about the, actual Metal Slug games, they do that in those games, too. So that tracks. It just took me by surprise because I saw, because they're the first enemy that the game throws at you. So I figured they're like, oh, these are the easy guys. They're melee. But no, they throw their swords too. And yeah, that caught me by surprise. And I think that's probably what ended up killing my Aerie, because I'm like, oh, she's not in range of these guys. But no, she was, because they throw their swords and she ended up dying. So yeah,
yeah, that was a pain. And okay, let's talk about the other thing that I think we both agree is kind of fucking weird to some degree, the elevation. Now, elevation, the only other tactics type of game I've played is, again, the advanced Final Fantasy Tactics. Just Final Fantasy Tactics.
Advanced.
The one with the kids.
Yeah.
Whatever. There's elevation in that. And, like, I get elevation, like, oh, if you're one square below and you're melee, you can't hit the person above you, because that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense if you're using guns.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, in a lot of the tactics games, like, elevation is good, especially if you're ranged, like if you're an archer or if you're a sniper or something. Like in Final Fantasy Tactics, if you're an archer and you get ranged, your arrows can go further, for example. Or if you're playing front mission and you're perched up high and you've got like a sniper mech,
that would make sense. That's how they work.
A lot of the skills are like, oh, if you hit from elevation, you get a higher hit chance, or it's easier, so you use less AP. In XCOM, that's a thing as well. But then, like, the inverse is also true. Like, if you're aiming up, it's harder. So, like, it makes sense to be like, if you're aiming down, it's easy. If you're aiming up, it's harder. But in this game, it doesn't matter if you're up or down. You just can't hit, which I don't like.
Yeah, I can understand it to one degree if, like, say the elevation between one character and your character is 2. Then maybe I could, even with guns, maybe I'd be like, maybe. But if they're only one elevation away, that makes no sense why guns can't hit them.
I guess my only guess is maybe they're trying to make it feel like Metal Slug, the actual game, where like they can only shoot horizontally, but it does feel weird in a tactics
But then that
game.
would also work against them, because there are guns that can fire in multiple directions. Mostly the fire one, I think. Like the flamethrower, you can kind of get that to...
most of the guns, yeah. Like the machine gun can do that too. It's like the pistol. The pistol can only shoot like up or straight.
Yeah, so I get
Or the laser, yeah. But like the machine gun...
But the other ones, it still wouldn't work, so...
I think the thing that really bothered me the most was like when my character... Like I said, I can almost understand being like, okay, we're going to make it so you can't shoot up. Maybe there's sun in your eyes or something. I don't know. But if my character was standing on the edge of the building and there's a dude like below or like a couple spaces below, like they should be able to shoot down.
Yeah, it doesn't
Maybe
make
not
sense.
shoot up. Sure, fine for some artificial difficulty, but shooting down just seems like it should be a thing. And like if you're throwing grenades or bombs, I think that doesn't matter. Elevation doesn't matter then.
I don't think so, but it's already been a couple of days, so my mind is like, oh, that's out.
So yeah, that was kind of weird. But then you use that, like in the stage where I had to escape, that was kind of like the thing, like, oh, okay, I got to jump on all these roofs and make sure that like the guys can't hit me because they're on the ground.
Yeah, I guess.
Which is kind of silly, but whatever.
Also, there was the escort mission. Did you do that?
I didn't get an escort mission. No.
Okay, so I guess we did different, because there's a couple of different options of like, oh, take this route or something. So I did one with the backpacking girl. I forget if she has a name, or I think she might have a name.
She probably does. I don't remember it.
So you have to escort her, and of course, it's also like you don't have to kill anyone. She just has to escape. And she's got about 15 health, which I think is actually more than what your characters start with.
Yeah.
She's the typical AI. It's like, oh my God, why are you running in front of these people? Like, not even on a different elevation. It's just she's running in front of them and they can just target her. And I'm like, oh my God, why are you doing this? But somehow, I guess she had enough health. Maybe I managed to kill enough guys that were, quote unquote, in her way that she was getting in their way. She did end up actually surviving. And I think only she has to cross the finish line. I don't think your guys technically have to, which also helps.
That's good.
So it was like frustrating until I figured out, okay, only she has to cross and get into safe area, blah, blah, blah. So.
And Fio has
oh my God,
skills to like, at least my Fio ended up with skills to like protect. So she could, or to move. Those are really useful too.
Yeah, there was the acupuncture, I think they call it, or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
That definitely helped.
Eventually, like once she leveled up, she had a skill where like anybody that she uses a skill on also heals 2 HP.
Mm,
So I would use acupuncture to like buff the defense and heal, and that's really useful.
mm.
Or even to move. Like at times there was like, I remember in one stage there was a guy that was like 2 stories up and like I couldn't get to him. So I had Theo use her little UFO arm catcher and bring him down. And like,
That was cute.
so
I like
yeah.
that. Now, I know you weren't like super excited about the new graphics, but I don't know. It seems like they put enough emotion into them that it didn't seem too bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
And the UFO catcher was pretty cute. I didn't use it all that much. I used it only like once or twice, but
Yeah, that was a really useful skill. They all have interesting skills. I guess Ares explosion stuff wasn't as interesting.
I didn't actually. I had a problem. Her regular skill of the grenade is fine, but there was another skill. Was it Ares where something about you throw 2 and then the second one goes off where the first one drops, or
yeah,
I didn't quite understand what that was.
yeah, that was that one frustrated me the first time too, because like I couldn't figure out how to get it to work. Like I wanted to make it like hit these 2 guys that were clustered and hope that I could hit one and then the other, but like I think it wants like to target different spaces, so I had to like make it bounce into an empty space.
Yeah, but then she has, I think it was her special weapon, and something about you can change. It looks like I don't know how else to put this, but the squares that connect the explosion looks like a Tetris piece, and you can change the Tetris piece to it or something.
Really?
Or the shape so that you can designate.
I remember, okay, so the regular grenade she throws was like a little plus sign. It did like basically 3 horizontally and 3 vertically.
Right.
And then like her grenade launcher was basically that same shape, except I think 1 or 2 extra spaces. I didn't know if you could rotate it into an X shape. That would be useful.
I don't remember an X shape, but I forgot if I hit a button or something, but I remember she had either the special weapon or a special attack where it's like I could change it to look kind of like a Z Tetris piece.
Huh.
So I could get one guy over here and one guy like 2 rows over, 1 down or something.
I don't know.
We'll have to check it out together just to see, but I thought that was vaguely interesting. How about my thing in, again, you've played more games with this aspect, so how, especially in, say, XCOM, how would cover work? Does cover protect you completely, or does it work like in this game?
Cover in this game is weird.
Okay, so I wasn't the only.
Yeah, because like there's basically like cover spaces, and they're designated. Like some things that you think would get covered don't. But if you see like this is a cover object and there's like blue spaces next to it, if you stand in those, you just get like a flat defense.
But it didn't make sense because you don't have to be behind the cover away from the other person.
Yeah.
You could be in front of the person, but just next to it, and then that still counts. And I was like, what?
That's weird. That's not how other games I've played do that. They take into account like what direction your cover is facing.
Yeah.
So that could be annoying, especially because at one point, one of the bosses like he ended up standing next to this really high cover, but like even though we were on the same side of it, like I could barely damage them.
Yeah,
but
that was weird.
Yeah, using like the what do they call it, the synchronized shots, like
the syncs. Yeah.
With all that, I was able to take them down, even though like some of the shots just did nothing.
I was getting a little bit better at figuring out how to position my people.
That was very important, especially for the boat. The boat fight was great because the boat was so big. You can trigger those super easily.
That makes sense. But I guess that was also an interesting aspect because for the smaller people or with regular attacks, yes, you can sync, but like I can't unless I did. Okay. If you put, when Ares is the one that does the grenade, right?
She can easily hit you, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's also a risk. She does have friendly fire. But you can't put, like, her behind, say, Theo and have Theo shoot and then she would throw the grenade, or did she?
There was line of sight. So Marco and Theo both use handguns. So if a friendly was in front of them, they wouldn't be able to get into the sync because they'd end up shooting the friendly, so they don't.
That makes sense.
But Aerie, because she throws and her thing like arcs over, she can.
Oh, okay. So that, okay.
But again, then
that
you have to
makes
worry
sense.
about friendly fire. Like if the person you're targeting is right next to you, you'll also get hit. Like the AI tries not to sometimes, but sometimes it just doesn't.
And the other thing with the sync is because guns can only shoot in side to side, like you have to put them almost like in a box formation, if that makes sense. Like I can't put Fio and then I can't put the guy Marco next to her and he can't shoot it because he's
Diagonal, yeah.
So that
I have to
was
line them up.
it was okay, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, granted, in a game like XCOM or Front Mission or these tactic games with guns, like that isn't a thing. But I guess it's, I don't know, it's just the limiting factor or a design choice where, yeah, they can't shoot diagonally.
Yeah. But I guess that's basically most of it. My one question though is, and maybe the other Final Fantasy Tactics did this too, where you had to, when it was the end of your turn, you position your person to how they're facing.
Yeah.
Does any other game, anyone else ever done that? Because I thought it was an interesting aspect, even if it was also kind of frustrating as shit.
I think that's the only game I've played that does that. It also depends on the scale. Surprisingly, Fire Emblem never cares about this, even though their scale is probably the most similar to Final Fantasy Tactics. But in Fire Emblem also, your characters counterattack, so I guess they're always on the alert. I mean, if they can counterattack. Obviously, if they're getting hit from range, they don't, but...
Because it seems weird that, like, a character attacking you from the back would do the same damage as taking it from the front or something.
Yeah, some games take that into account. Like in Final Fantasy Tactics, I think that's mostly like a hit chance kind of thing, or like there's some special skills that will trigger if you're from behind or whatever. But in a lot of games, they kind of don't worry about that. Like in XCOM, it's mostly just if you're hitting you from behind, you're probably like you're not behind cover in that case. So like they just have a higher chance to shoot you. But if you're out of cover, it doesn't matter if they're shooting you from behind or from in front. Like you can't really dodge bullets too well. It's mostly just up to the other person's aim. You're not going to be doing matrix dodges.
Yeah.
So for a gun game, I guess it doesn't matter too much.
I thought that was that. And the other thing is having the judges, but did people hate that? I forget.
I think a lot of people, I don't know if they hated it, but it was just, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is just so different from Final Fantasy Tactics. So people hear the name and think of the pedigree and like what Final Fantasy Tactics was. And then they get Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and it's like, wow, this is very different. Not only is the tone way more childish, and now there's like animal people instead of just like humans. And then you also have the judge thing, which I guess they were kind of trying to tie it into Final Fantasy 12 where the judges were a thing. Except in Final Fantasy Tactics, the judges are like, I guess, referees. It was...
I guess because I didn't come into that game with all the...
preconceptions, yeah.
That it was so much easier for me to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. There was also interesting aspects to it in the sense of like, sometimes the judges were very annoying. And like, you'd have to work around that. Like, sometimes you'd be boned. Like, you get into a fight and one of the rules is, hey, you're not allowed to hurt Moogles this time. And then you're fighting like a party of Moogles. And it's like, what the hell do you do?
That's fair.
So,
actually, now that it just registers in my mind, that's kind of what happens in the Thousand Year Door. Not quite a judge, but it's only in when you go to the fighting ring and you'll have specific conditions you have to meet in order to progress in the rankings towards the championship. And I thought that was actually really fun.
Yeah, in Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, there's also ways around it. Like, eventually you talk to a guy who's like, I don't know if he was fighting against the judges or he's like, the judges are unjust, so I'm fighting against the system. And he'll give you like anti-judge magic or something. You like hold up these cards and you can either change the rules, get rid of them altogether, or add new ones. So sometimes that would be fun. Like if you get like a card that's like, you're not allowed to hurt mages, then you could just set that rule and you can set your party with a bunch of mages. And then like if the enemies hit you, they get in trouble and get arrested. So it's like there was an interesting aspect to it, but like a lot, I think it's one of those like gimmicks. It's like you either like it or you don't. And it's like, did Final Fantasy Tactics need this? Maybe not. Was it fun sometimes? Yeah. And then there's also times where like there were zones in the game where like the judges did not patrol.
Mm.
And in those wild zones there would be no rules, but your characters could permanently die.
Oh, shit.
So it's like the trade-off, right? So it was
Yeah.
kind of interesting in that way.
Oh, another quick thing. In the Metal Slug game demo, was there any real point to where you designate who gets put in what square at the very beginning? That seemed kind of silly to me.
Well, I mean, there was a tactical thing to it, like especially I assume as you get later characters, because once you get like Tarma's his name with the glasses. Since he's melee and shotgun, he's short range, so you'd want him to be in front of the other characters, of the support characters.
I guess, but with the 3 that they give you, it's like, okay, I guess I can see putting Ares in the back because she's got the grenade throw. But other than that, it's like, just place them down. Why give me the choice? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a minor thing. Like there was one mission I had where like there was 2 starting zones. So I put like Ari and Fio in one and then Marco in the other, and they would meet in the middle.
Mm.
But I don't know if you get more characters later in the sense of like more than 3 to use at a time. Because like after I beat the game, I unlocked Tarma, so I went back with Marco, Tarma, and Fio.
But you could still only use 3.
Yeah, It's like if you can use more than 3 at some point, like maybe there's more. But like because they're all so close together, usually it doesn't seem like it'd be a big deal. I don't know.
Guess we'll see.
It was okay, I guess. I would probably buy it and play it. Maybe not anytime soon because, my budget right now, but I guess I enjoyed it enough. I wouldn't say it was like the best, my favorite tactics game or anything like that. I still like, if I could pick like a new Fire Emblem or a new Final Fantasy Tactics or a new Front Mission or a new XCOM.
Basically anything else.
A new Unicorn Overlord.
Oh, Jesus.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to rate this game higher than like some of my other favorites, but it was fun enough that I would play more of it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you buy it someday in the future, I think I'd probably play it too.
Interesting.
Just because I don't play these games very often, and yes, I know I should probably play Unicorn Overlord.
I mean, you did say you wanted to try the easy mode.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Just the story, even just like going into it in almost like a journalistic way. Not that we're journalists or anything, but just to go in, like investigate the story mode and see how baby dumb easy. Yeah. I mean, sure. I mean, I've seen people playing it on normal and they're like, this is too easy. And then like people playing it on the hardest mode is like, this is still too easy. But I've also seen people playing it on normal. They go on like, I'm having a hard time. So it's like, it just depends. And I mean, I guess that's the good thing about these games with options. Like if you do want to see the story and figure out what's going on, I don't know. I will say for Unicorn Overlord, the story isn't really why I played it, but there are some parts where the characters and stories were interesting enough that I did want to know more. And especially the second chapter, I forget what the country's called. It's basically like a deserty, mountainish area, Dragonland, Dracoland or something. That one had a very, very satisfying finale. So the second chapter, I think, is worth playing just for the final chapter because, oh my God, it was really good. I think if you've played Unicorn Overlord and you know what I'm talking about, the final mission with when you're retaking the castle is just, and the music they play is just holy cow. Honestly, the best song in the game. Anyway, that music is way too blood pumping to put on this podcast, though. So yeah, that was.
Do you want to talk anything about what you've played this week?
What have I played? I played that demo. I was going to play the other demo, and then I've just been playing Genshin mostly. Not much to say. I guess they released a new character, and I pulled for them. And you watched the gacha nonsense in action. Yep.
And now I've done the bad, and I've installed Genshin for myself. So we'll see
how
long I stay with it.
It's tough. It's one of those games where I was like, I kind of want you to see some of the later stories and characters, but it's also like, I know the beginning is slow, and then dealing with the gacha stuff is kind of like, ugh.
I can deal with the slowness, I think. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just dealing with the Super Animu stuff. And I know, it's just, this is how they work, and it's just, I haven't been into anime stuff in so long, and it's going to take a little while.
Some of the characters are worse than others, I'll say that. Yeah.
Paimon seems fine other than talking in the third person.
Yeah, that's her thing.
But I might also just put them into Japanese just to also listen to Japanese in general. So.
I like the English, but whatever.
We'll see. I know the Japanese is like, well.
Then you got like the cliche Japanese like high pitched voices that they do for female characters.
Exactly. I was gonna say that. It's like, well, on one hand, I won't understand most of it, and I'll be excited by what Japanese words I do recognize. But yes, they have that super high pitched thing. So it's like, I guess we'll see. Or maybe I'll put it in Chinese because, like, I don't know anything of Chinese, but sometimes it sounds interesting.
To be fair, I've tried it in all 4 languages, and yeah, it's interesting. But I ended up
What's
just
the
sticking
fourth one?
Korean.
Oh, okay.
But I ended up just sticking to English.
Mm.
And honestly, yeah, I've grown to almost like Paimon in a way, which is weird because a lot of the cutesy characters don't do it for me. But I think it's mostly just the interactions that they have with your character. Like, there's a lot of friendly teasing.
Yeah, I already saw the one and was like, oh, is this your traveling companion? And like, no, it's a light snack. I didn't choose that. But I saw the dialogue for it and I'm like, oof.
I like that they have a lot of friendly teasing with each other, and it just sometimes it makes me laugh, like the things they'll say to each other.
Yeah, actually, the one, because like I guess the top is always the good one, and the bottom one is the teasing one or whatever, or the quote unquote negative. And I noticed when I went to go get the first like statue with the god and got the power from the god for whatever reason, and Paimon's like, "Oh, you're so lucky," and I'm like. I ended up choosing the ones sort of with the like, I don't know if this is a good thing. And she's like, how dare you say that about getting like magic powers from a god? And I'm like, well, I mean, the last god I just had an interaction with like fucking captured my supposed brother and like captured me or something.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, of course I don't have like a super great view of the gods right now. But I'm in a different world, so maybe their gods are better. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see how far you play. I will say one thing. I think you saw the cutscene with like the dragon already.
Yeah. And like what I assume is a boy, but might have been a girl. I don't know.
There's a point, and they only do this once in out of all the, I don't know how many hours I played in the game. For some reason, there's a really silly mini game or mini fight with that thing that is really dumb.
Okay, I'll try to get past that.
Yeah, I, at some point you'll be playing it and you'll be like, this is really dumb. Why is this suddenly a thing? And I promise you it only happens with that character, like, I think once or twice. And then never again in the entirety of the game. And it's like, I think they were just, at the beginning of the game when they made this,
something.
They were just trying a bunch of different things. Like, oh, we can't just have open world. We got to throw in other stuff. And it's like, no, it's okay. You don't have to put in this other thing. It's really bad. But...
well, I guess they quote unquote learned from it if they never put it in again.
They really did learn from, like, you can tell, like, going from that zone to the China zone. It's called Leeway, but it's basically a country that is basically China. And you're right now in a country that's basically like, I don't know, some European place like Germany or something. But yeah, eventually then you get to Japan and it has its own gimmicks. And then some of the gimmicks in Japan were horrible and they never brought those back either. It's like, thank freaking goodness. Now I'm in the India zone and like I haven't run into any gimmicks that are bad. In fact, all the stuff that they added in there have been really good. So hopefully that continues.
That's good.
And like, even when I saw you playing a little bit, like just seeing like when you come over the hill and you just see like the land. Like, it's such a pretty game for, like, the cartooniness of it.
Yeah, it
like,
seems fun.
You think back to, like, Breath of the Wild, which is what this game gets compared a lot to, and it's like, the Switch just cannot make a game look like this.
In our defense, we also did not play The Legend of Zelda on the Switch, so...
Yeah, so, oof, it's probably even worse on there. I mean, I know it's worse on there, because when I played it, I had, like... mods and options to turn on like draw distance and more objects and stuff. So yeah, we
got to put it on max for what our computers can handle.
Yeah. It's like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's just graphics. But like when you're trying to get immersed in this world,
to
having a beautiful world
the
kind of helps.
Yeah.
So yeah, to me, that kind of does matter, especially for a game like this where you do get immersed in like just wandering around and exploring. I like it to look pretty.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'm already getting, I I am going around, and because it's open world, and for the time being, I don't realize if there's inventory space thing, but I am just picking everything that sparkles.
Luckily, there is no inventory. There is, but it's like a ridiculous number. It's like if you have 9,999, then you need to clean up your inventory. But other than that, I think you're fine.
Oh, good, because I'm just gonna pick everything.
And for those
So
things
much stuff
that do have an item limit, you end up using them as currency for other things anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Anyway.
So I did play a little bit of RimWorld, like I said last time that I would, and I actually did manage to. And there was one game I actually played, but then I started switching mods around because it's been a while. I had to update a lot of mods to 1.5. I was still on like 1.4.
Oh, they had a big update or something?
Yeah, so they released Anomaly, which is a new DLC. It's the third DLC. And it adds a lot of stuff, but every time they do send a DLC update, to some degree, all games will update with a basic package bottom, if you want to call it that. So I had to update a lot of mods. And boy, do I have a lot of mods.
I know that feeling. Like, not to get too into it, but when like Monster Hunter would update, and it's like, I made mods for Monster Hunter. And
you
like,
have to update them.
Sometimes people will be like, oh, they're broken. And it's like, I have to check, are they broken or is it user error? Sometimes it's just user error and my mods are fine. Sometimes they do break and I have to update them and it's like, oh God, that's annoying.
Yeah. So the first game I played, I'm not going to go over because, again, I switched it so much with mods that I just started over. So the second time I decided I'm going to start with villagers or the 5 tribals is what they call them. And it's like the tribals are a bit harder than just the 3 colonists on the easier mode, but it's just I don't know. There's like an aesthetic reason.
Harder?
So with the colonist, it's easier, even though you only start with 3 people, because
I assume you still start with nothing.
No, actually, that's the thing. You start with a lot of items depending on which start type you're. So the 3 colonists has like more money. They already start with some of the basic research items. So the colonists are more akin to modern people, if you will, with technology, whereas the 5 tribals they're tribals. So their research and not intelligence, but what they know at the start is much more basic. And while you can slowly research into more modern stuff as time goes on, I think because they start as tribals, that even if they take, say, 500 points to research, complex clothing or something, it's still going to take them a longer time to research that than what the colonists start with. They're tribal, so I'm not. They still have the intelligence and they still research fine. It's just a little harder for them.
It's just starting with less of a head start.
Yes, it's just different items, less research.
Yeah, that's fine.
They're going to be cranky for longer and stuff.
I wasn't sure if okay, but I get it. I see.
So another thing is one of my mods also makes all starts a little bit harder because in the regular game you can just build beds from wood. And whatever quality you get, the wood bed, it doesn't matter. It's a good bed, whatever. But I have a mod that I installed that makes beds where you can still build the basic foundation, but you have to also create bedding to make it more useful. So they'll get more rest during the night if you give them better quality bedding to use on top of it. But the tribals don't start with even the basic beds. You have to just start. No, actually,
straw mats on the ground.
They don't even have straw mats. They have beds, but the items, you can use hay or you can use leather items or like skins and furs and stuff like that. But it's hard in the beginning because unless you have, I also have a mod where I can just, the wildness has food stuffs already. So I can go out into the wilds and pick hay that happens to be growing. And maybe I can turn that into the hay fiber that I can then use for the beds. But if you don't even start with that, then you have to grow the grass first, which takes growing takes a while, say take a week. So these people are going to basically be sleeping on the floor for a week. So they're not going to get as much rest. If you set any part of their time for recreation instead of playing games to make themselves happy, they're going to be so tired they just go take a nap. But because they're napping at any time that's not work time, they're not getting their recreation, which makes them sad. So like for a couple of weeks, my people were just on the brink of mental breaks because their recreation was at zero because they were sleeping on the floor. They weren't getting enough rest during the regular night, which I give them like the 8 hours. So they were taking naps instead of playing games. And it was just like, it kind of rolls into itself. I don't know how else to explain it. But eventually I did collect enough hay. I did collect enough leathers. I did finally manage to get them decent beds to sleep on. And then once that happened, they can just rest enough during the regular night. And then when they had time for recreation, then they could actually stay up and play games, and then they were happy again. So that's like his whole thing. So then eventually, I work on all that. There was Mantis, who was like a big burly woman, and Hawk, which was a smaller woman. And they were like the researchers because they had the most intelligence at the time. So the research was going pretty slowly. And then this person comes by and says, oh, they're going to join your place. And the ideology that my colonists have just happens to like want to help beggars. So we let them in. And I noticed that the person that joined us had a gun, which I have all tribal people. So I made the person drop their gun in the warehouse and she just kind of forgot about it. So it was fine. Well, it's a good thing I did that, and I kind of expected this to happen anyways. After a few days that she was with us, and I got as much research out of her as I possibly could because she has the most intelligence. So I only put her on research to try and build up what we knew. After a few days, she turns traitor. This is exactly what I fucking expected because it happens so much. It doesn't always happen, but enough times. But thankfully, she turned traitor while she was just sleeping in bed or when she woke up. So she didn't end up trying to go get her gun again to shoot everyone dead. All she starts doing is like punching the wall. So I just had one of my guys come in and like, you can just fight them. So it's kind of a chance of whether they die or not. She ended up dying, whatever. So I'm like, well, that was kind of a waste because I was enjoying just having so much research points. So we lost her after that. And then we had like these really tiny raids. One person comes in with a shitty weapon. We put them down really fucking quickly. It's no big deal. So we go through like 2 or 3 of these tiny, super dumb raids, whatever, because we have like not much research or any wealth. And then I get this one is like, oh, there's a raid coming, and they're attacking right away. So I was like, oh, fine, I'll check them. Their weapon is like 29%, whatever. I don't know how the fuck it happened. She ended up beating Mantis's right leg so bad that Mantis just fucking lost the legs for some reason. So she's on the ground crawling back to the base. And then the person just fucking grabs one of my villagers and like hightails it out of there, and he gets kidnapped. And everyone said that we lost him. And then on top of that, the guy that got kidnapped was bonded with 2 of the animals, which was like a Sphinx cat and a little bulldog terrier or whatever.
So the animals are sad.
The cat goes into a daze because they lost their master, and the fucking bulldog goes manhunter, attacks someone. He has to obviously defend himself. He hits the dog and ends up killing it. It was like, it was going so well, and then fucking someone gets kidnapped, and the dog is like, oh, I guess I have to attack everyone on sight.
Yeah, I know, that's not too unbelievable.
It was going so well, and that's the thing about RimWorld. It's like, it's a storyteller game because it's so randomized.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it, even though it's fucking frustrating.
Yeah, I feel that.
So that's what I've been doing the past week. I hope you enjoy the story of this just absolute fucking mess of a game.
Are they screwed or?
No, I mean, we still have we have Mantis, we have Hawk, we have Bringa, who is the dude, which I'm dumb and I kept confusing him for a woman because long hair and
Graphics don't give you much to go off of.
No, it's very simple. So I have a mod, I guess, and it shows like their sex symbol in the top corner of their profile picture, so I can at least remember who's who. And Bringa had the thing where he kept hitting on Hawk, and she had no desire because unfortunately Bringa has his one attribute is that he's ugly. So he kept getting turned on by Hawk. Oh, and then get this. So another wanderer comes in or something. I'll try and keep this short. Another wanderer comes in, joins us, blah, blah, blah. He hits on Hawk once and she falls for him. So I'm just like, poor Bringa has been going for like a couple of months now trying to like woo Hawk, and she keeps turning him down. This guy is with us for like 2 fucking days and Hawk's like, I want to sleep with him.
Oof. Oof. Damn.
So that's another aspect. So there's always these little things, and like you might not always see how their social interactions go. They have very simplistic like symbols that come up above their head, but if you go into the social tab, it'll explain more of what's going on.
Yeah.
So if you pay attention to that, you can get more of you can see more of a story happening like in text.
Yeah, that's fair. Wow.
Yeah.
God, what a sad ending. We've all been there, poor guy.
Poor ugly Bringa.
Oh, totally relatable, poor bastard. Anyway, I think
you're not ugly.
No, sweetie. Well, I'm just saying we've all been there and in the past. And on that weird note, we should call it a day.
So we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.